Hey guys, it's Mike from That's Cool Vintage Collectibles, and today on the show we're going to talk about something that my daughter asked me about the other day, and she was in my studio, and she said, "Dad, is there anything that you have now that you had when you were a kid?" And I had to think about it for a second, but pretty sure I do. So let's go inside and take a look. All right, thanks for tuning in, everyone. And if you're new to the channel, please give us a like and subscribe so I can keep this going and build the content for you. And today we're going to talk about some of the earliest pieces in my collection and pieces that were pretty important to my development as a collector and the journey that I took as a collector. These are pieces that at the time had a lot of significance for me, and nowadays not as much, but they're very nostalgic for me, and they do take me to a certain place and time in my journey as a collector, and I can remember getting all of them. So I'll take you through what some of these items are today. Well, somewhere along the line in grade 2, I must have asked for a record player or something. I'm not sure why, but my dad gave me his original Beatlemania with the Beatles record and a Fisher-Price record player. Not many grade 2s are asking for this, and I don't know what sort of inside me decided that this is something I had to do, but this is the record. This is the actual record I was given, and on the back my dad had written his name, and I thought that was the thing to do, so in grade 2 I wrote my name, and when my daughter entered grade 2 I had her add her name. So there's 3 generations that have enjoyed and listened to this record, and some family heirlooms are, I guess, vinyl records. And that's what this one is. So this really got me started though and into music, and I really enjoyed early Beatle records. I just loved it when I was a kid, still do. Think it's great. So that's where I started, and maybe that's where this first artifact, why I ended up looking for this. But along the way I was inspired by a song I'd heard on the radio to go out and find this 45. Let's see where that goes. So I had to look this up because I didn't remember what year this was, and I looked it up, and this song was on the Billboard Top 100 and reached number 3 in 1988. So I would have been 9 years old, and we looked for this thing locally at some department stores that are around where I grew up, and we couldn't find it. And my dad had this idea that we should go to Toronto and go to Sam the Record Man and check out the selection there to find this 45. We were going to find it. I think thus beginneth my enjoyment of the hunt for the treasure. And this was as much fun as actually getting the record was going to try and find it everywhere that we were looking. And I really enjoyed that, and it's part of the things I still enjoy as a hobby and pastime, and it's cool. So off to the city we went, and when we got to Sam's, it was like nothing I'd ever seen or imagined. I couldn't believe this much music actually existed, and I thought, if I'm going to find my record, it's going to be here, that's for sure. And always enjoyed throughout my teenage years going to Sam's and checking out their selection. It's just an amazing store, and had so many different levels to it, and you could get any kind of music there, and they did in-store signings, and it was just a really cool place to hang out. And on the front it had these 2 huge neon records that lit up, and it was on Yonge Street in Toronto. And Yonge Street at that time was just wild. It was just an amazing place to go. And as a 9-year-old, this was like downtown Las Vegas. It was just crazy, crazy times for me. Okay, so we got into Sam's. We look around. We go to the new releases, and there's just piles of 45s of new releases. It was a hot summer day. I remember that. It was July or August, and it was really hot. And they had the doors all open, and people in there, and the music's going, and the sound of the street is coming in. It felt very, very, huge for a little country boy like me. And it was just bins and bins of 45s. And I looked, and I looked, and I looked, and finally, there it was. And I remember pulling this thing out and just thinking, I found it. I've actually found the record that I've searched for all this time. So, here it is. Eric Carmen, Turn the Radio Up, Make Me Lose Control. Well, I wish I could say it was a cooler record than that, but Make Me Lose Control was ultimately the first 45 I ever bought, the first record I ever bought, the first music purchase I ever made in my life. And at 9 years old, I was one of the only people I knew, if not the only people I knew, that had actually ever bought a record before. So, you know, it got me started, and with my collection now, I can honestly say it was the right move. I got into it, and this song, whenever I hear it, I think about that day on Yonge Street and discovering Sam the Record Man, and all of the records I bought after that were based on the joy I found by buying this one song, and that's why it's still here. That's why I still own it, and I don't listen to it ever, but it's here, and I'm never going to get rid of it. It's the first one to make its way into my collection. And that same day that I was out, I actually found another piece that is still here and hanging around. And I was walking out of Sam's and walking back to the train station. Came in on the train. There was a shop that was selling a lot of NFL merchandise. So this must have been August. So I think football season was just about to start or just starting. And I saw this Miami Dolphins pennant. And this was huge for me because I was starting to cheer for the Miami Dolphins because I became a big Dan Marino fan growing up. And there was this pennant, and I got them both on the same day, and they're both still here, and they're both still part of my collection. And pretty amazing, really, when you think about all those years later, that it's still hanging around. So there's two pieces from the same day that started my collecting journey. So I can safely say 1988 was a pretty big game changer for me and what I was starting to discover and what I was starting to collect. And these were the first items that I actually felt like I truly sought out and were mine. And they weren't gifts, they weren't things that I ended up with, or they were actually things that I hunted out, found, and brought home myself with the allowance that I had or whatever money I was able to accumulate or acquire, birthdays, etc. And it was the start of this idea of ownership of things that actually really meant something to me, and it was all starting in 1988. Tune into part 2 of this, and I'm going to talk a little bit about some other things that happened that year that put me on a path of collecting different other items as well. Really appreciate everybody's support. The channel's starting to grow. If you liked this sort of video and you want to hear more about these types of things, click like and subscribe and follow the channel for more content on collectibles and collectible related topics. Appreciate you watching. Keep on collecting.